Thank you for tuning in to Comp with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and we're here with comic Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you coming on because you're just a busy motherfucker doing all these fucking shows, and we track you, of course, online. You are Monkey in Heaven, which might be a Pixies reference.
It is. It is a huge Pixies reference. I've also got a tattoo to go along with it.
Yes, I think Kate Hester did some work for the Pixies. I think she did some
Yeah,
tape art for the Pixies, and so I confessed to her that I was in a Pixies cover band because
really.
I can scream and I look a little bit like that chubby behemoth Frank Black.
Wow. When did you guys play? What years were you active?
That was just years ago, and I think I've been, of course, in other bands, and you're going to hear my band's music playing at the beginning of our episode. But when we
Okay.
were a cover band, our great guitarist switched to drums just because he wanted to have fun playing drums, and so we just did that for a couple shows.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
They put
you're
on
big.
one of the best shows.
Yeah, so you're a big Pixies guy. So did you see them? Like, kind of when did your love for them grow, and what is the tattoo? And did you like the reunion stuff? Do you like their new stuff? That's the big question. I think I asked Drew Dravenko, and I think
Yeah.
he was a little bit down on the prospect.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend in college, and I really liked They Might Be Giants. She really liked the Pixies, and we kind of gave each other those and left each other, but kept the love for those bands. And I would listen to Doolittle and
Yeah.
Surfer Rosa nonstop for years and years. And then I saw them when I lived in Chicago. Uh, they were amazing. They had just gotten back together at that time. I think this is like 15 years ago. And you could just see the animosity between Kim Deal and Frank Black on stage.
Even now.
I mean, 15 years ago, you could see it, and it just oozed, and it was powerful and disgusting, and you were just mesmerized by it. And then I got to see them again with their replacement for her up in Omengang, and they were great. And the new music, is fun and interesting, and it's nice to see a band evolve and not try to stay exactly the same.
Yeah.
I can think of so many bands that just sound the same on every track, and that's not them, which is nice.
Yeah, and I guess that leads to, well, there's about 84 questions which I'll ask you, which is, first of all, did you get into Frank Black's solo stuff? And then also, I think of the questions I have are, is Monkey in Heaven the favorite song? And of course, what's the tattoo?
Hmm.
And yeah, all these things. And also, I lived in Chicago too. So yeah, kind of where'd you live?
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, how was their show now compared to back in the day? I suppose the vibe was much better.
I I mean, I really enjoyed the hate that was coming off the two of them because their whole thing is being discordant. Like that's their music, is that
Yeah.
it's supposed to sound a little bit off from what you're supposed to be used to. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and that was great. But also, it was great, hearing them not have that. I just feel like the talents of the entire band are so much that they could play either way, and it was really enjoyable.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. And the last time I saw them, TV on the radio opened for them, and I think
Wow.
TV on the radio was also just so mind blowing. That was such a great day. I ended up doing something my friends in college and I used to call shtooms, and it was on accident, but it was if you mixed marijuana, alcohol, and mushrooms.
Okay.
And I didn't mean to, but my friend had mushrooms and he gave them to me, and I was already drinking. And then somebody handed me weed, and
Yes.
I was at a concert where I was gonna camp afterwards, so it just kind of worked out, and it was wonderful. But it led to a really embarrassing situation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are you allowed to say it without burning material?
yeah, no, no. This I don't have any comedy about this. It's just a true story. We were camping. It was me and two of my business competitors. We're all friendly, and two of us decided to camp. One of us decided to have a hotel a ways away. My friend that was camping with me just kind of vanished off during the concert. I assumed to his tent, which was, cool. So after the concert, I went back, but like I mentioned, I was stooms. I was just really like, wow,
Yeah.
And Brian, I got back to my tent and there were two people having sex inside of it.
This is a good place. Nobody's here. This tent is empty.
Yeah, and the tent was empty except for my stuff. And
a sleeping bag that they just used. They just had sex on top of your sleeping bag.
It was inside of a Coleman, and it's like this Coleman that's like really highly rated on Amazon. So I got it because of that, and I like tried to unzip it and get them to leave, but then people around started yelling at me, and in my like Frankenstein state of like fear of fire, I just kind of probably moaned and walked away because I didn't want to get yelled at, because how was I going to explain in this state that these people were having sex in my tent? So I was just like, well, what's the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to steal my stuff and I'll just get my tent back later. And
so were the people yelling at you because you interrupted something that people were watching? Like, were people watching these people have sex and they're like, why the fuck are you fucking up our show?
The people that were having sex were like yelling at me, get out of here.
Of course.
We're having sex, leave us alone. Because sometimes you want privacy for sex. Sometimes you don't.
Privacy can often mean other people's tent.
Yeah. So I went walking away and I came back 15 minutes later, and I have to say, like, I'm okay. I'm okay in bed, but longevity can be difficult, and they were still going at it 15 minutes later. And so I was like, God, I don't want to get yelled at again. I'll just keep walking in the other direction. So I walk for about 2 minutes, and I walk up to my tent. And the other tent wasn't mine. It's just a really popular tent. I tried to get into somebody else's tent while they were having sex in their own tent.
My Lord. You just walked into fucking Woodstock. What the fuck was this? I mean, was it a campground near a festival? Like, was this a music festival going on, and that's why everybody's fucking everywhere?
Brewery. Yeah, it's Omen Gang Brewery, and so every summer they'll have like five or six concerts, and you can pay a little extra to camp on their campgrounds. It's just outside of Cooperstown.
Wow.
So the next morning I woke up and I told my friend about this, and we woke up kind of early because we wanted to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And so we drive into town, we go to the Baseball Hall of Fame, and we're both starving, and we, find the best breakfast spot in town, and there's a long wait outside. There's, very few spots inside. And so I'm standing there, and these two girls walk by, and one of them points and goes, "There's that fucking pervert."
So at no point did you reveal that, you were fucking in my tent, or was this the second tent that you actually don't know what girl it was? Probably was it the girl who was fucking in the first tent?
Oh, I don't know. Well, no, but they were never having sex in my tent. I'm sorry, they were having sex in their own tent. I had the same tent.
You walked into somebody else's fucking tent.
See, then this is why it's not material, because I need to make the story make sense. I originally walked into somebody else's tent, but it's just this really popular Coleman tent for 4 people.
That's cool.
That you can put up by yourself really easily.
Well, this is when you test material, man. You test it on a podcast, and I love that you did. I mean, because I thought that something like that could have happened. I thought that ultimately there could be a reveal like, oh, guess what? They weren't having sex in my tent. I was walking in their tent while they were having sex. Yeah.
That was what it was.
Yeah, that's fucking cool. And so that was just an experience for you. And were you just, I would have been mortified. Like, first of all, walking in on anybody having sex is fucked up. Just being like, first of all, you're having sex in my tent, then you're yelling at me. All these things are traumatizing. And then finding out that, holy shit, I had gone into somebody else's tent, I would have just been horrified, just because I'm so hard on myself. I'd be so horrified at my own behavior. Like, are you hard on yourself, or do you just be like, I was on drugs, I was fine?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I was on the right combination of drugs. Mushrooms are being used by the government to test on people with PTSD.
Okay.
So, the perfect thing not to have trauma with.
Yes, it just rolls off your fucking back. I love that. Yeah, because they're trying to separate the emotion from the memory, and so if you're on a certain drug, I suppose they could separate the two. That's fucking cool. Yeah. And so how do you top that experience? I mean, you're just gonna have to be stroomed all the time. What do you call it?
Stumps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to top that one. That's fine. That's fine not to top. Where in Chicago did you live?
Yeah, I was in East Lakeview, so like Belmont by
Oh,
the lake.
yeah, yeah. I was at 832 West Roscoe.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I lived
Uh,
all around it. Yeah, I think I lived on a Briar and a Surf and a Belmont, and
okay.
that's just south of a Diversey, near the Brown line there. And that's my favorite hood. So that and Astoria, and just kind of were you doing comedy back in the day, and was a straight stand up? Were you also dabbling in that
Uh,
improv and sketch scene around Improv Olympic and Second City?
yeah, I was all improv and sketch, and people kept telling me that I was very bad at improv and that I should do stand up. And it was always in a certain way that I took as a total insult. But it turns out I'm pretty good at stand up, and maybe I should have listened to all of those people and given it a try.
Yeah, I did not like. Yeah, I had 1 second in improv, and I hated it. I hate the lack of control, and I think it's because I did stand up first. Like my first
Oh,
time was, I thought it was an open mic or whatever. It was at Wrigley. What's it called? The Cubby Bear,
yeah.
and there was a real audience. Like we
Oh,
did an
wow.
open mic, real audience. I killed. Like meaning the door guy dapped me up on the way out. He's like, "Yeah, man, that was awesome." Like there was comics referencing my
Fun.
bits. It was great. It was fucking perfect. But then I moved to New York and you go to shitty open mics in Greenwich Village with four people and they're all on their phone. They're not paying attention. It's other comics. They're all
Mm.
jaded. Like it was just it couldn't have been a more different experience. And it's like, I don't have the hustle or to go through these three soul crushing mics a night. And so kind of at what point did you pick up stand up for good and how'd you get through that? Did you kind of,
Oh,
hone your chops in Chicago or did you wait till you got to New York City?
that's interesting. No, and I really missed out. I was in IO at the same time as Jenna Friedman, and she and I weren't friends, but we were interns there at the same time. She started doing stand up at the same time that Hannibal Buress was doing it, I believe, at a bar near where you used to live. Do
Okay.
you remember Town Hall Pub?
No, yeah, I don't
It's
think
on
so, but
Halstead.
no,
It
but
was like,
yeah.
okay.
So was he around there? Is that kind of where he came up?
Well, that's where I met both. Well, that's where I met him, and that's where she used to go to do stand up. There was a show there called Entertaining Julia by the Putterbaugh sisters, who were both now in LA. And a lot of improv and comedy people would go there to, do their stuff in this really nice dive bar setting where they had $2 Jim Beam on tap.
Wow.
And Robin Williams apparently showed up one night, saw Jenna's set, took her to hang out, and then the next day was on late night and stole one of her jokes and did it.
No.
Yeah, and then I guess he knew what he did, and I heard he helped her out. This is hearsay from other people, but
Okay.
this was like 15 years ago.
Wow.
So I really should have started back then because I really enjoyed it. But a couple years ago, I did a show called Cherry Poppin' Standees for people that have never done stand up before.
Okay.
Really enjoyed it. They kind of help you get going. They put you in front of a real audience. They had a pro comic at the end, so you could kind of compare what you did versus what real comics were doing. It
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. And I was like, man, I want to do this. And one of my friends, Michelle Trina, has Divorce Show Diaries. She's great. We went to college together. She's been doing this for 4 or 5 years. And so she started putting me on her show like every other month. And I was like, oh, this will lead somewhere. I don't need to do open mics. I'm already better than that.
Good.
And I got on 6 shows, and then like nothing happened for the next year. So I finally started going to mics, and the experience you're talking about, I feel that I wasn't going to the Greenwich Village ones as much. I was going more to the Upper West Side Comedy Club, Broadway Comedy Club, just because they were closer to where I live.
Okay.
And it was tough. And then I read Andrew Ian Bayroff's article about how you can't bomb at an open mic
Yeah.
because I would leave just feeling crushed. And he talks about the fact that like most of these people are just there to do their own jokes, and you're there to do your own joke. And if you get a little bit of a response, great. And if you don't get any response or people are rude to you, don't worry about it. It's an open mic. It's not a show, and you can't bomb those. And that really gave me a lot more confidence. So I would say like January of last year is when I started. and it took me about a year to get really going. But January and February this year, I was using Excel spreadsheet to track how much time I was getting up,
Okay.
and I had more than doubled the amount of time I was going up
Good.
just in that 1 year between open mics and shows.
Good.
Um, so it was cool. But yeah, I just had to convince myself that there was no embarrassment, and I still have to a certain extent. It's really hard going in front of other comics because they're your peers, and also I know how much I judge myself. It's like, how much do other people judge me too? I don't know. Do you are you a big self-judger?
Oh yeah, I'm totally hard on myself, and that's why it's just like, dude, fucking, I'm 42, I'm older. It's like I'd rather just fucking talk to 15 comics on the podcast every other week than go up 3 times a night and be like and eat shit. And it's like I also don't like even the polished product. Like I enjoy as a fan watching somebody's act or somebody's bit or whatever, but at its best, as the stand-up, it's like you are repeating things that you know are going to work. Like you're just kind of repeating things. And I'm like, I guess the experimentation and finding those things is great. You're like, oh shit, I finally found B material. Let me turn it into A. Oh my gosh, it's A material. But then when you're killing with your A material, it's like, isn't it just repetition? And doesn't it seem fucking, it just seems weird to me that the top of the art form is repetition. But
Well,
really, I mean, those people are taking their A material and they're working B stuff in and stuff like
yeah.
that. And most of the times you're trying to even find those bit. And so the genius comes from writing it and finding it and things like that. But
Hmm.
it's like you guys are, I also had an experience with a stand-up teacher who was fucking genius. Like this guy in 1 second, he came up with like 45 OCD jokes on the spot. Me with him over the phone. That was more genius than anything I've ever heard in my life. And I think this guy punches up Gaffigan, really. But like at that time, I was like,
Can
"You
you
are."
say can you
I,
say their
I
name?
I actually forgot his name. I thought I'm gonna have to go back on my Hotmail. It's that long ago.
Oh well.
But I was like, you are as good at this as I am at X, Y, and Z. Via poetry or argument or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I was in law school, court competition, so people would, I'd argue, and these judges would pepper me with questions. So I'm good at speaking and stuff. But it's like I'd rather. I think I said to Mia Faith Hammond on the way out of the podcast studio, I said something like, I do this because I want to riff with comedians without going to a single comedy club, and it was lost on me the fact that I was in a basement of a comedy club at the time. I was like at QED, but yeah. So tell us real quick. Last thing, tell us about the show. Tell us about, was it WTF Steve?
Yeah, WTF, Steve. I started out the quarantine by doing some live stream comedy interview shows, and I started adding games in. And eventually, people started telling me the games were the best part. So we'll have 3 or 4 different games with 3 different comics coming on. Felicia Madison, the booker at West Side Comedy Club, is my co-host, and she's the judge. And it's trivia, it's perception games, it's some improv character building games, just stupid silly stuff for people to get a chance to act stupid and silly during this time.
Good.
And it's been a lot of fun, and I've been getting lots of really really nice messages from people that have been watching online. We posted on West Side Comedy Club's Facebook Live every Wednesday at 9 p.m.
Okay.
And it sits there. We've got old episodes up. I'm gonna start editing them down to get rid of all the ums and uhs and the little weird bumpy moments, and then
Yeah.
posting them on YouTube too.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just been super fun, and I've gotten to see some great comics say some really really weird unexpected things. It's been really really cool indeed. We've got Rebecca Kaplan, Brittany Cardwell, and Gus Constantelis coming up soon.
Nice.
Brett Singer, Pete Stegemeyer, and a few other comics are coming up soon. I'm trying to get Niles Abston. He just had a great album come out. I don't know if you've had him on here, but he's a hilarious LA comic. Alani Nichelle and Bria Badeau and Jay Wack from DC should be coming on soon. And
Good.
that's the cool thing about this whole apocalypse is like, sure, I can't see people face to face, but I'm getting to meet so many people from far, far away who are just stuck in the same situation as I am, and we can all,
Yes.
jump on here and do this, and that's been the best part.
Yeah, and someday, man, you will have built up that network so huge that you're going to be able to fuck that network. It's like I think that was on Funny People. He's like, it's like you plant the seed and then you fuck the plant or whatever. Like that's what you're doing. You just hope for that. You're like, yes, I'm building up a comedy network. That's awesome, but I really hope someday I can actually go see these people in person and go. If I have 15 LA comics, I want to go do a show in LA and stuff like that. But we're tracking all that stuff, and it's monkey in heaven across all social platforms. So Steve Cohen, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you, Brian. You're wonderful.